Hello, today I thought we'd make some embellishments. They're faux metal embellishments which you can use in junk journals or mixed media projects, whatever you wish. They look like grungy metal, but they are actually made out of cardboard. You can do gold, silver, whatever colour gilding wax you've got. So I'll show you what the base is. I got from the works this stencil book. It's the craft place, but it's from the works store, and there's all different fonts of stencils. There's also some white and black paper and card in here as well. As stencils, I don't think they'd be particularly hard wearing, especially for mixed media. They'd probably be a one-off use. But for the purposes of this project, they are absolutely ideal. The book is £3 and you get 11 stencils and 12 sheets of paper. So once you've used the stencils, you can use the paper. They come ring bound, well, not ring bound, but with these little ring, I don't know what they're called, but anyway, they hold them together. So you can just take them off. I can get into it. And what you can do is you can use these with some of your embellishments, which I'll show you in a moment. But then you can take the book pages stencils out. The long embellishments I cut with my guillotine in strips, so I got a strip of letters. The individual letters like this, what I did was I found the bigger pages of stencils like these, cut in strips and then cut them into individual numbers. The tall thin numbers I did in rectangles, the others I did in squares. Just sort of go with whatever you think. So you've got lots of choices in there. If you can't get hold of one of those, what you can do is you can die cut. I'll show you. These are the ones that I've cut out. But if you had some card, it doesn't have to be craft card, it can be any colour, you could die cut some numbers or letters. Just remember that if you've got, say this one, if it was joined up, you'd have to keep the little bit that goes in the middle as well as the number that it cuts out. So you could die cut some and just do this with die cut letters, numbers. So I've got my craft exclamation mark and number 4. You can mount them onto any reasonably sturdy cardboard. You can do them onto the same thickness of cardboard that you've die cut or the surplus from your stencil book. That makes them quite thin. Or you can do them onto quite thin corrugated cardboard. That makes a thicker embellishment and a bit more chunky. So all I did was get some reasonably strong PVA, round the edge, round the edge of the number or the letter. Basically you want a good adhesion of your letter to the cardboard, and stick it on. Doesn't matter if your glue comes through the edges and the middle, because you're going to cover that, so that doesn't matter. press it down really well because you want it to be well and truly stuck. I usually leave them, I do quite a few, and by the time I've got to the end they're usually dry in warm weather. If not, I'll leave them an hour or so till they are completely dry and they're not going to come adrift. Then all you do is cut carefully around so that you've got your number stuck onto your panel. So you've got it now on a nice thick piece of cardboard, or thin if you're using thinner. I think all these are onto thin. Thick. Yeah, thick. Yeah. Once you've got to that stage, I'll put this onto a piece of white scrap card, otherwise you won't see it on the black craft mat. This is Art Basics Heavy Gesso in black. Any black gesso would do, it doesn't really matter, whatever you've got. I have a Deco Art one and it's got really quite dry. It's great because it gives a bit more texture, but it is quite difficult to spread. This is just a heavy gesso. And you're just basically going to completely paint or gesso your little panel. Don't worry if you get brush marks in it. It's actually a bonus because when it's dried and you put the last effect on, last technique on, it shows up, which is what you want. It's a bit of visual texture. You get very messy doing this because you end up having to hang on to it and then you get black gesso all over your fingers. So you can either just brush marks into it, or if you wanted you could stipple with a bit of gesso everywhere just to give it a bit different texture and a bit of an uneven look, like distressed metal. Once that was dry, you would also do the edges. It's much easier when it's dry, because if you try and do it while it's wet, you just get even more covered in it. So imagine I've done all the edges, and I would usually do the back as well, basically because if I'm going to use it dangling on a chain or something like that, I want the back to look like the front. So you do back, front and all the edges. If it's really white shiny card, you could sand it a little bit to make the gesso stick a bit more, but it should be fine. But you might sometimes need 2 coats if you're going onto white shiny surface like this is. So basically you set that aside to dry. I'm just going to pop that on there. Put it out the way and put the lid on my gesso. So that's that. Clean your hands well, because the next bit you need not to get gesso into your wax. If I'm doing a few bits and pieces with black gesso and I want to do something in between, and I'm just going to be a couple of minutes, I wrap my brush in a wet or damp baby wipe and roll it round. It saves me having to get another brush and put this in the wash, but only do it if you're only going to keep it for a couple of minutes. So we've got our, let me see, I better get something white for it to go on again. There we are. We've got our number, which was originally started like that, then went to that stage mounted onto a piece of card, and then we gessoed it. I've done this back and front. The back possibly needs another coat. The next bit is really easy. I've got several colours of Prima Art Alchemy metallic waxes. These are Finnabar. And I'm going to do this one with gold. I've also got silver, brushed iron, copper. You can use whatever you want. These go a very, very long way. I've had this years, and as you can see there's still plenty left. You just need a very, very small amount. Don't gouge your finger into it and get tons on it. You just need a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. Just move those out of the way. I hang on to my number and then at one end, and then just gently rub over the top of your gesso. I tend to always go one way rather than round in a circle. It's just a habit I've got into. And you can basically build it up gradually. And then turn it around, and I'll go the opposite direction from the bottom upwards. And you can keep putting a little bit more wax onto your finger as you go. I find it easiest to use my middle finger, but you can use whatever you want. It will pick up all the texture that you've put on with your gesso. I've just gone into the middle of the number a bit more as well. Now I've actually got a hair of my paintbrush in there, so I'll just get that out if I can. It doesn't want to come out. That's it. Get rid of it. So you can see it gets a distressed metal look. Don't forget to do your edges as well. And also, if you're going to use it double-sided, do the back as well. Now, if you're going to stick it to something, if you're going to stick it to a project, don't put wax on the back. Basically because it will stop your adhesives working as well. Some things will still work, but it's a bit of a barrier because it's a greasy, waxy substance, so it's better not on the back if you're going to want to put them onto something. Once I'm happy with that, I tend to go around the edges and put a bit more on the edges. It frames it and it just gives it a finished look. On the edges, if you've got little bits of gesso sticking up, that looks great because it looks almost as if it's been welded to something. So that's it. So that is your faux number, or faux metal plate number. You can, if you've done it double-sided and gilded the back, before you'd done all of this, you could have punched a hole there with a hole punch, and then it could have hung on a keyring on a journal or something like that. If I'd done it with probably the brushed iron, I could have hung it onto one of these and then it would have gone on a journal. And these, as I say, are off the stencil book. So that is really easy and really quick embellishments from cardboard that look like metal. Hope you have a go, and let me know what you think to the video.